share it with you because you all are family here. So, how many of you like change? Ryan, do you like change? Depends what it is. Yeah, that's right. Huh? To the good. Yep. Well, I'm just going to tell you, and then I want to maybe reminisce just a little bit, but I'll just tell you, and then that way you're not wondering, well, what's he trying to say? So whatever, God has been doing different things in our lives and just giving direction. And one of the things that I felt that God was asking me was to step down as leader and to pass that on. And this has been a process, and us as leaders have been talking, praying about this. And so one of the things that I have seen, I think all of us as leaders have seen this, is that God has placed a call on Marcus and Kate's life, and that call actually specifically was to Strasbourg and even to Cross Connections here. And I think God has placed a call to lead on them. And so we are excited to, I guess, help to empower that call that God has put on their lives. And we're planning to put Marcus into that position of leadership here in the church. And the leadership team will remain. And for those of you that don't know, it's Jason and myself and Joe and Marcus. And so that will remain, but we'll be transitioning that leadership position to Marcus. And so we're excited about that. He makes things happen. So I'm sure there'll be some things that are different. And there was a part of this that kind of included me releasing and allowing him to do things differently or whatever. And I think that's a good thing. I think it's good for both of us. And I've always, it's interesting because I always thought Jason was a leader, and he always thought I was. And partway through, we kind of realized that neither one of us really likes to lead. But we did, and I mean, I kind of took the more front role, but it was always a very much of a shared thing, and we wouldn't be where we are here today if it wasn't for Jason's. And it's crazy how God brought us together. But I'm excited to, I think God does new things. And one of the things that we've learned, and we talked about this the other night, us and Jason went out for supper, and we talked about there's a lot of things, and Bev and I have done a lot of different things in our lives. And it's like, God took us to new things, and then he would bring us to the end of that. And, it's a step of faith to start. It's also a step of faith to change, to do something else. But one of the things that we've learned is that God moves, and he continues to move in different ways. And, he uses us in certain positions for a time, and then he moves on, and he moves us on to a different thing, and then he uses someone else and moves in a different way. So I've learned to view that as an exciting thing. And one of those things was, when we transitioned the coffee shop over to Aaron and Kelly, and that's been a good thing. And so this is just another thing like that. And like I said, we're also going to be a part of the leadership, but just that, I told Jason the other night on our way home, I was like, I almost feel like this kind of load that I've carried for a long time, that it's kind of sort of lifting. And it wasn't a bad load, it's just like a responsibility. So I'm excited about that. And this week, the one night we were at home, it was just Bev and I, which is very unusual. And so we're like, what are we going to do? And like, do you want to read? We're getting older, so it's like read or watch a movie. That's kind of the options, unless we're going to go somewhere. And we weren't going to go anywhere, so like, let's watch a movie. So I always look for free movies, because I don't like to pay for movies. The kids do, but I don't. So I found It's a Wonderful Life. So we watched the movie, and it was really good. I cried. I often cry on movies, and I thought about it, and it was really interesting, and I feel like God actually had me watch that, whatever, because I stopped and thought, and if you haven't watched the movie, it's really interesting, but this guy sees what would have happened if he would have never been born. And I thought about that in the context of the church here, and I thought, if the cafe would have never been there and Cross Connections would have never been there, I probably wouldn't hardly know any of you. Some of you I would sort of know a little bit, because some of you I knew a little bit before, but I wouldn't know you at all the way I know you now, and we wouldn't be together. And, we probably won't always be together. So it's exciting to see what God does from here, but I feel like our life is so much richer because of the relationships that we've built here. And I've always said, when God called us to move to Strasbourg, we thought we were bringing Jesus to Strasbourg, and we got here and we realized he was already here. And we just kind of joined in with what he was doing, because he was already working. And we've seen God do some really cool things, like just over the years, and like not, a lot of them, they weren't necessarily things, some of them were things we were involved in and some of them weren't, but it's just like watching God move around us. And anyway, so I love all of you, and it's like family, and so it is exciting. And I want to have Jason share, and I do want to say this too, because it's really interesting to, when I stop and think of Marcus stepping into that leadership, because when Marcus first came to the cafe, I had just talked to him a couple times. He was a brand new Christian, and he was just kind of at that point where it was kind of almost a transition in his life. And he started coming, and God just used multiple people here to speak into his life, and I've watched him grow, and then he worked his way into our family somehow, and it's a good thing. And so it's really cool. At that time, when I had that conversation that Sunday morning, said, hey, you should come over to our church sometime. I never dreamed this. So it's really cool. God gives us beyond what we ask. So, all right, Jason, it's all yours.
I'll come up where I can see people. All right, how you guys doing? All right, I would give a lot to know what's going through your mind right now. So I don't want to make a bigger deal of it than it is, but I don't want to make less of a deal of it than it is. And I will say this, just as you're reminiscing, it made me think. I was going around the room and thinking, besides Melissa, I don't think I knew one of you in this room 7 years ago. Not one. I don't think one. I got to know Kate and Tori first, and I do remember my first conversation with Marcus, and I came away thinking, this kid has a long way to go. Honestly, I remember it, and he did. So, but I just want to amen that. I bless you all, and God gave me a passage this morning, and I'm not going to read it. I'm going to just say it. It's some verses in Luke where it says, and I'm saying this because I honestly don't know how you're feeling, and we're recording this for those who aren't here so they can hear it too. I don't know how you're feeling. I don't know what you're thinking, but Jesus gives a parable where he says, suppose there's one of you who has a servant. In that day the servants were servants, and he says, suppose one of you has a servant, and he goes out in the field all day, he gets sweaty and hot, comes in, and he's hungry and tired, and which one of you is going to say to that servant, okay, have a seat, get cleaned up, I'll feed you? He's like, no, that's not how it works. The servant goes and prepares supper. He feeds his master. He takes care of him. And after he's all done, he goes and takes care of himself. And, I don't want us to think less of ourselves than what we are, but he gives that parable to teach us that we are for him, not for ourselves. And I think it's just really important that in our day and age, I think a lot of us are going around looking for that church, that job, that environment, this group of friends that will make us happy and give us joy. And while I do believe walking in his will and in his purpose for us will give us peace, joy, contentment, all of those things, if we go out seeking those things, it'll always fall short. Some of the things Paul Mark shared this morning actually really spoke to me, and I don't think Mateo's in here, I'm not sure, but we playing a lot of Uno lately. And this morning I think we were playing, and he's just like, oh God, just make it so that I have a good hand this time. And I was thinking, well, is this a teaching moment, But on the other hand, how many of us actually do that? When you really boil it down, God, just deal me a good hand today. That would be really nice. Sometimes he does that. But is that what we're ultimately praying for? Is that what it means to, when he says, I'll give you whatever you ask? That's not what he means. He means as we're walking in him, like what Paul Mark shared, as we're walking in him, he will give us the desires of our heart. So we have if you look back on the 5-6 years we've all been together, the changes have been constant, but maybe we changed too quick at times, I don't know, but we never really went after change for the sake of change. But I want you to get that if you are searching for that perfect environment that will finally make me content and happy, you're not only not going to find it here, you're not going to find it. Because that's not where it comes from, is finding this perfect environment. But where it does come from is finding the God that I can fulfill my purposes in, doing what he called me to do, and thriving in that role. Mountains will move. Things will happen. And so for me to sit here and say that I anticipate well, I do anticipate change. That's one thing I do anticipate, right? I mean, I have been, and will continue to anticipate those things. But I don't know what that's going to look like for the next month, let alone the next 5 years. Like I said, I didn't know any of you 7 years ago, none. So for me to have imagined this environment here this morning it's impossible for me, and I wouldn't have really wished it any different. But I embrace that for the next 7. I do. And I think that I'll go in and out of it, and I think all of you will too. We probably are all on this spectrum of completely embracing his purposes for our lives. I think we're all on a spectrum. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that I've got this sorted, but Paul said, but one thing I do, forget what's behind, and I strain towards what's in front of me, because what's past is past. Whether you want it to be or not, it is. And I think, as we go through this transition here, it was something that I always sort of saw in the windshield, and it's out there. It's going to happen. I don't know that I knew exactly how it was going to happen, but at some point, things will migrate. Paul Mark will step back. Things will change, and all of a sudden, the future's here. And I think it's just, whoa. I was still thinking it was future, but the future's here, and I just lost my train of thought. When the future happens, let's embrace it, because what's past is already past, and there's only one thing that remains constant, and that's him and his purpose for your life. So we don't know exactly what that means. I don't know. Sometimes I don't know anything, but he is calling us all into a unique purpose. So whatever that is, I don't only want you to embrace it, but seek it out, whatever that is. And it is one thing I know. It is not about creating this perfect environment here where you can sit here and be insulated from the world and be happy. That's not it. So, Father, forgive us for when we have desired that. Forgive me for when I've desired that, because I've been there. But I have just enough life experience now to know that's never going to happen. So I can keep on wishing for it, but it's never going to happen. So let's embrace him. Let's embrace the purpose he has for us. And let's not embrace it because it's changing, but just accepting the fact that things will change, no matter what we wish for or how we think. It's fair enough. I think I said everything I was going to say, and probably about double. So, you want this back? All right.
I forgot, thank you, Jason. I forgot to mention that we are planning to have a commissioning service, I guess, probably would be the right term. And we're going to wait and do that after the new year, after all the holidays, because the next month or so is a lot of things going on. So sometime after New Year, probably soon after New Year, we will have a service for that. And just one more thing that just went through my mind, and I think sometimes we've looked at leadership kind of backwards, because a leader is actually one who serves the people. And so stepping into leadership is a big commitment, and it's a lot of responsibility, and it is actually literally serving the people, and you have to have a love for the people to do that, and that's something that I know that Marcus and Kate have. And so you all have made it easy here to lead, because sometimes we've done things spur of the moment and all that, and you've sort of just you didn't get upset or whatever. You've made it easy. So I want to thank you for that. And but yeah, so as you think of that, pray for them, because it is a big responsibility. It is serving, and Jesus showed us what that looks like. So, all right. Anybody have anything?